Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Any mentions of rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal or tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.
Coming up today, we discuss the historical impact of the financial crisis and what we can learn from each to better prepare for retirement. And we're not holding back, so don't go anywhere. We kick off it for 30 seconds.
And now, how to retire with Fuchs Financial.
The main thing for the majority of the listeners out there who are approaching retirement is I don't want to be surprised.
Helping you build, preserve, and manage your wealth.
You got Roth IRAs, you got individual accounts, and finding the right taxable strategy, that's going to be huge for you.
Welcome in to How to Retire with Ben Fuchs.
Welcome into the show. This is How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm Gary Nolan, your consumer advocate. With us today, filling in for Ben, is Gina Mazzadra. She is here, and she has lots of experience. And where is Ben these days anyway, Gina?
Yes, so Ben is in Florida, weathering out the storm down there right now.
Gosh.
Fort Myers area. So hopefully it's not too bad. But
yeah, hopefully he'll get home sometime soon, right?
Yep.
So Gina is literally holding down the fort for Ben. Gina, I know you were with us last week, but in case some folks missed the show, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure. So I got started in the financial industry right out of college, working as a temp at a pretty big retirement company. And when the person I was temping for came back to work, I just kept showing up. And I would walk around the building to different departments trying to keep busy and see who could use my help. And eventually they hired me full time, gained a couple credentials and started working on my MBA, concentrating in finance. From there, went on to work at Morgan Stanley for a few years, passed my Series 7, 66, joined Fuchs Financial. And I've been here for a little over 3 years now. Since joining Ben, thanks. Since joining him, I got my Retirement Income Certified Professional designation, and I actually passed that a couple days before my first son was born, and have had a second son since then.
Nice. Very nice. Well, yeah. So basically that first job, you just hung around until they hired you full time? Is that what it was?
Basically.
Kind of annoyed
Forced their hand.
Yeah.
They're like, I guess we'll keep you.
I guess we'll keep her because she's around here all the time anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Gina, it's great to have you. And let's get on with the show today. We've got a great show, chock full of great information. I hope our listeners will enjoy and learn a little bit about today about your personal finances and your retirement goals and dreams. All right, so let's start out now. In the famous 1948 Winston Churchill speech, Churchill stated, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. Lessons been proven time and time again." With that in mind, we're going to cover historical, significant economic crisis and financial instability and impact that each had on your retirement planning. Let's talk about the big one first of all, Gina. The Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. What about that?
Right. So the Great Depression marks the most significant and devastating economic turndown in modern history. So stock markets crashed, banks failed, unemployment soared, and economic output plummeted. So it's very significant for the generation back then.
Yeah, for the Great Depression. And if you've seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, that's an actual depiction of what happened to Runs on the Bank, right? Yeah.
Right, yeah, where he went into the bank and there was the line out the door, everybody trying to take their money out all at once.
It really happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that was the Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. So what type of impact did the Great Depression have on retirement planning? What do you think?
So many retirees face dire financial conditions due to the collapse of personal savings and pension plans. this was when Social Security was introduced. It was in 1935, and it became a crucial safety net for retirees. Later, the Social Security became a third leg of that stool that made up the pension, savings, and then the Social Security benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everybody had pensions back in the day, too, and Social Security certainly was a leg up on folks. You know, it's funny, though, when Social Security started, I think the life expectancy was late 50s, early 60s. So they didn't pay out a lot of Social Security back in the day, did they?
Mm-hmm. No. Right. Yeah. And then, you know, people had pensions back then, which isn't as common now. So
right, absolutely. Pensions kind of went away in the mid 80s, I guess, mid to late 80s.
Right.
Let's talk about the next one. Is the Great Recession from 2007 to 2009, and that's one that you were around for. The others, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I know. I was not around for the Great Depression.
We know that.
The recession, yes. Depression, no.
Yeah, right.
So that was triggered by the collapse of the housing bubble and the mortgage-backed securities, which are investments structured much like bonds. The Great Recession led to widespread financial instability, high unemployment, and significant drops in assets. So I have a client who, you know, had major losses back in 2008 when this was happening, and she's super hesitant to have anything in growth-oriented products right now because she never wants to see that happen again. So that's where things come in handy, like, you know, safety and, you know, having a safe asset that you have some growth in, but it's not going to go down in value, or, you know, things that are just lower risk, maybe something that's more income oriented rather than growth. Right.
So she definitely is a risk averse, I guess you have to say, huh?
Yeah. So, and then we have a few people like that, which is understandable.
So what do you think was the overall impact of the Great Recession on retirement planning? How did people approach? You touched on it a little bit, how people approached it differently. So what do you think?
Yeah, so many retirees, nearing retirement, saw their retirement accounts severely depleted, and that forced them to delay retirement or adjust their lifestyle. You either have to adjust how much you're spending or save more so that or work longer so that you can continue to live the same lifestyle. The crisis highlighted the importance of managing risk appropriately and developing a diverse investment strategy, like we talked about, having safety, income, or growth.
Right, exactly. I got to tell you, Gina, even they gave me a mortgage in 2007. Shows you what kind of banks we're dealing with, I was lucky enough to get a good mortgage back then. The rate was pretty decent, too, at the time. All right, so we talked about the Great Recession. We talked about the Great Depression. Let's talk about Social Security crisis of 1983. I was around for that, Gina. I remember that vaguely.
Yeah. So in 1983, the concerns over solvency of the Social Security Trust Fund led to major reforms, so including increased payroll taxes and gradual increases in retirement age. So over 40 years, the full retirement age gradually rose from the standard age of 65 to the new standard age of 67. So those born in 1960 or later now have a full retirement age, according to Social Security, of 67, in which they can receive the full Social Security benefit.
Mm-hmm. Certainly a relatable topic, given the history has seemingly repeated itself in recent years. Break it down for us. What kind of effect did this have in 1983? What do you think happened?
Right. So there was certainly an impact, both positive and negative, actually. So while the reform of the Social Security system and effort to revitalize that depleted the Social Security Trust Fund, many retirees or pre-retirees that were on the cusp of retiring had to recalibrate and reassess their retirement plan and also adjust what their saving strategy were to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Social Security is not designed for folks to have the only income in retirement. Am I right, Gina?
Absolutely not. No, it's not. It's not supposed to be the only source.
What do you find, like in some of your clients? Maybe your more affluent clients don't need it nearly as much, but I've heard it's anywhere from 40 to 60% of the mix-up of your retirement income. Is that right? That's what you hear too?
Right. So it's a significant source where it's going to help people, maintain their lifestyle, but it's alongside the withdrawals that they're taking down from the IRAs, any pensions if they have pensions, and trying to make sure that what their income looks like is meeting what their expenses are. Mm-hmm. So that's really what it's about. There's no, it's hard to go by a rule of thumb. We say, all right, well, we look at what do we have saved, what are we earning, and then what are we spending.
Right.
And looking at it that way is the most meaningful for each individual.
Mm-hmm. When you're preparing a retirement plan for folks, do you work on the income side first? You have to know exactly what they have and have come in. Am I right?
Yeah. So we ask a bunch of questions. One is, what does your total income look like and how is it going to affect your taxes? And then two, what are your expenses? And are your expenses exceeding what your income is? And if we look at that with inflation, how is that going to impact you 10 years down the road? Are you good if you start drawing down on your IRA? Is it going to support you until you're in your mid-80s? Or does it show you running out in your 70s? And if so, then we have to make some adjustments.
Right. And even though people don't live to 100, not everybody lives to 100, your plans go out to pretty much 100, am I right?
Yeah, we plan out to 100, but then again, we look at it showing that, in your 60s and 70s, you're living a different lifestyle, most likely, than you are in your 80s and 90s. So we still want our clients to do all the things that you saved your money to do. We want you to live your life and enjoy retirement. We just want to make sure that it's going to be comfortable for you as you age.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the Social Security crisis today, Gina. We just have a couple of minutes left. So what type of impact could this have on pre-retirees and retirees? Because I'm sure everybody in your office is asking about Social Security to come to visit with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So current projections indicate that Social Security Trust Fund may face depletion by the mid-2030s if no reforms are made, which could lead to reduced benefit for future retirees.
Mm-hmm. So what type of impact would this have? What do you think?
So this uncertainty necessitates more robust personal savings and investment strategies, as a reliance on Social Security alone is not going to be or may not be sufficient for a comfortable retirement.
Right, and that's what you just mentioned. It's certainly not a go it alone type of thing as Social Security. All right, Gina, a couple of minutes left. Tell us what you'll do for your listeners when they come in and see you.
Sure. So we've spent a good deal of time talking about this retirement, Social Security, and we want folks to know that we keep a few openings on our calendar for a free review for anyone who has more questions about this. So give us a call and we'll chat with you personally and try to answer any questions you have. From there, we'll talk through all the different puzzle pieces that you need to consider for your plan. For instance, Social Security, which age should you pick to start taking that benefit, and then how much risk are you taking in your portfolio, and is it appropriate for your age and for when you actually want to retire?
He's letting the clock run out on his Social Security to age 70 for maximum benefits. And here comes the Roth conversion. He's locked in for income for life. He's got some outstanding coaching with that annuity plan. He's created his own pension as well, and it looks like he's going to go all the way.
Play your best retirement game. Call Ben Fuchs at Fuchs Financial, 800-380-8985, 800-380-8985.
All right, so when you think of the richest man in the world, names like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, these are all major investors that, pretty hard to imagine anyone better off than any of them. But we're going to talk about this one guy who makes major players like Mark Zuckerberg actually look financially insecure. Now, this man, Jacob Fugger, he's from Austria, Germany. Now, you Google this guy, because I have never heard of him. I'm sure you never heard of him until you Googled him, too, right, Gina?
I did, yeah. I looked him up. So, from what I found, he rose to power in 1487 AD by writing so many loans to silver miners that he eventually amassed a fortune totaling over $400 billion.
Wow.
That's roughly double the money that Elon Musk has available to him right now. So this guy, Fugger, he also had kings and popes in his pocket. So Pope Leo X and King Charles V relied on Fugger for his money. He even paid to build the Sistine Chapel because Vatican City didn't have the cash.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little wild.
Yeah. So what does it mean for people who want to retire? Well, he had 6 strategies that enabled him to amass and keep his wealth. We're going to talk about those 6 strategies so we can live as well as him and retire. I don't think, seriously, I don't think anybody know that is going to have $400 billion, but hey, you got to start somewhere, Gina, right?
No one I know. But yeah,
no
exactly.
one I know. Not even Ben. All right. So Let's talk. We got 6 strategies to talk through here, so we'll take our time with each one of these and what you can tell us about diversification of investments.
Yeah. So the first one, diversification of investments. Fugger believed that diversifying his investments across various industries and regions diversify your retirement portfolio. So, how we look at that is, we look at things similar today. You want to have, the investments, again, growth, income, safety. You look at those 3 big buckets, and then within those 3 big buckets, you kind of even diversify even further. So if you're looking even at like mutual funds or ETFs, there's like the mid cap, small cap, large cap. There's all those different buckets, in each of those 3 categories.
Right. So it's different asset classes. I mean, some people think that having a bunch of different stocks or different categories of stocks is diversification, but it's really having different asset classes, like you said, Gina, right?
It's both. It's both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't know about this one. Leveraging political connections. How do you do that?
So, Fugger financed emperors, kings, and the Catholic Church. So securing different business opportunities gives leverage to different investors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously a smart investor will always keep their eyes out for things that make sense for them. All right, let's get to our third one. Inventive financial practices. What do we mean by that?
Right. So Fugger implemented double entry bookkeeping and was known for his ability to manage credit and debt effectively. So how I look at that in today's world is, again, we want to look at what's the income versus what the expenses are on a monthly basis. We want to make sure that we're not digging ourselves into debt, especially credit card debt that makes it very hard to get out of. We want to make sure that we're managing our credit cards responsibly, looking at making sure the expenses are not exceeding what the income is. And then as far as the bookkeeping, we want to make sure that we're monitoring our actual plans and that we're not, just putting the money in there and leaving it alone and not ever looking at it again. We still want to make sure we're monitoring it and having access to it. So one thing that's important when we have clients come in is we make sure that they're set up with an online account right when they set up their accounts. That way, weekend, nighttime, whatever, we're not here, they still have access to it. We are monitoring for them, but it's important that individuals, watch their accounts as well to make sure that it's what they are actually looking to get. Right.
So you guys are active money managers. It's not a set it and forget it. It's something you guys keep an eye on, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And because it's not a static thing. Things change all the time. How often do you client reviews? At least once or twice a year or whenever the client requests it?
At least twice a year, if not more. So we reach out to our clients mid-year, around June, July, and end of year, November, December. The end of the year one is super important because you also have that hard deadline of 12/31 if you wanted to do things like Roth conversions or take out, do your RMDs. But yeah, at least twice a year. And then if they have questions, then more frequently.
Mm-hmm. And apparently Fugger had monopolies in some critical industries. Let's talk about that a little bit. I guess, why would he have that?
So, Fugger had monopolies in critical industries, which allowed him to secure a steady stream of income. Obviously, that's super important for retirees, having something that's consistent and reliable. One thing that we, know people have is Social Security. People also have pensions, especially if you're a teacher. If you're a teacher, you have a pension, most likely not Social Security. Rental incomes, annuities are sources of income. So even, that, not even looking at withdrawals from the IRA. So looking at it all together, we want to know where the income is actually coming from, especially for tax purposes. We want to look at that.
Yeah, you want to have multiple income streams, correct, Gina?
Yeah. Yep.
That makes total sense. All right. Long-term vision. I guess, a lot of investors today, they look at the market every single day or check it, frequently throughout the day, and they don't have that long-term vision. You need to have a short-term strategy, but also a long-term vision because it's a long process, retirement. Right, Gina?
Right. So Fugger was willing to take significant risks for substantial reward, but he always ensured that his ventures were sustainable. So when we're looking at long-term vision for our clients, we look at how are we drawing down on the portfolio. So I have someone that I spoke with the other day and explained to them that we can afford to be a little bit more risky with their Roth money rather than their IRA money. The IRA money is going to get depleted first. ideally, because we have to take down from that at 73 anyways. And then that gives the Roth money a longer time period to have growth and take advantage of the account that it is. It's going to grow tax-free. So to take advantage of that type of account, we want it to be the last place in retirement that we pull from. So, in terms of long-term vision, we can plan out which accounts we pull from and when.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. A couple of minutes left. Final point. Utilizing information and intelligence. Tell us about that.
So, Fugger maintained a network of agents and informants who provided him with valuable insights into political and economic developments, allowing him to make informed business decisions. And so, looking at this from our perspective, having a financial advisor to talk with makes sense, because you're working with somebody whose job is literally to watch the market, to make sure that the accounts are managed appropriately, make sure that it's aligned with your goals, and that's what we do.
We believe in better. A better way to invest, a better way to serve you, and a better result. We can help you determine how much risk you're taking, red flags that could be potential problems for you, how much you are paying in fees or commissions, potential tax liability, or even how to address Social Security. Call Ben Fuchs at Fuchs Financial, proudly serving all of Connecticut. Call today, 800-380-8985. 800-380-8985.
So how do you assess your financial health, and what exactly overall financial health indicate in relation to overall physical and mental health and retirement? We've got some important questions to ask for you along the way. All right, Gina, I'll start with this one. What is financial health, and why is it important?
Yeah, so your level of financial health indicates your readiness to pay for things now and for later, things you expect to be paying for, and then things you don't expect to pay for. So it's a measurement of your overall financial life. Like when you get a physical at the doctor, does thinking about finances cause you stress? If so, that's when we want to make some changes to it.
Mm-hmm. So if it gets too stressful, you would make some changes that could appropriately benefit the retiree, Gina?
Right. So if your finances are making you stressed, one of the options you can take is, call a financial advisor, talk out what is the problem, what's making you stressed specifically, and then we can help you figure out, what changes need to happen. Is it a lack of income? Is it debt? Is it, that you're worried about a market crash and you want to look at something that's safe? All those things.
Right, yeah. Now, one thing Gina and Ben cannot do is give you any medication for that. You're not licensed to give medication, am I right,
Not
Gina?
a magic wand. No.
Dr. Gina and Dr. Ben.
Yeah.
write me a prescription for something. Eliminate my stress. No, go see your doctor if you're really stressed, But
Exactly.
But they can make some changes to your plan that hopefully will alleviate some of that stress. So, you haven't been here too long, but on prior shows, I've heard Ben talk about the correlation between financial health and physical and mental health. Let's talk about that some.
Right. So money is emotional. It impacts our mental and physical health. I actually have a client who, it was a very long process bringing him on as a client, because he had this emotional attachment to his 401k, which sounds, it sounds silly to some, but if you think about it, it's this account that you've had open for years and years and years, 30 years in this industry, and you've put money into it, and now someone's saying, okay, well, now take it out and just, let us handle it for you. That's a very emotional, stressful thing to do, and it puts a lot of trust into us as their advisors. And it's hard for people to sometimes make that change, but it's necessary in order to get to and through retirement. So the financial stress that can manifest things like, insomnia, anxiety, migraines, you name it. And they say 60% of Americans are anxious about their personal finances, and nearly 50% of the U.S. Employees suffer from financial stress.
Mm-hmm. So did that client finally let go?
Yeah, he did. And I had several meetings with him. He knew he needed help. So that's why he came into us, obviously. And it took several meetings to get him to understand what we do, why we do it, and be on a comfort level with us where he was okay letting us manage it for him, which, that's what we do for all of our clients. But, in some cases, it's more personal than others.
Mm-hmm. And tell us more. There's a little case study that was given here, Gina, about this. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. So 58% of U.S. investors that surveyed agreed that the performance of their investments directly impacts their mental health. What I think impacts what I say, and what I say impacts what I do, and what I do impacts who I become mentality. Mm-hmm. So, not having that financial security can really impact, should I be going on this vacation? Or even just being in a good mood when you're, getting up for the day and thinking about what might I want to do? Should I go out and get a coffee? No, I'm not feeling so great. I'm feeling a little tight, with my budget. So yeah, it definitely has a daily impact for many people.
Let's get to our third question, Gina. Debt has been a big source of worry and anxiety surrounding finances. What kind of impact does this have over time in regard to financial planning and the financial planning journey of your clients?
Okay, so debt-related financial distress increases the odds of developing depression by 51%. So stress comes from problems that, feeling like you don't have any solutions for. That's what we provide a creative solution for financial questions. So we can help with that piece and hope that it alleviates some of the stress in your overall well-being.
Have you had clients that had high debt, and how did you advise them, Gina?
Yeah, so I've talked to many people with debt. What I do is I look at what are the interest rates that you're paying, especially if it's credit cards, because those credit card rates can be like 27+%. Right. So we look at, all right, who has the highest interest rate? Let's pay off that one first. All the extra payments that we were paying towards the other ones, they're all going to go to the highest interest rate one first, pay that down, and then go on to the next one. And then it's kind of like this waterfall pattern, right, where you're, chipping off one at a time in a strategic way to get rid of those cards.
Right.
Other debt.
Sure. Lots of people talk about paying off their mortgage. And would you recommend, or depends on the interest rate?
Depends. For the most part, no. I think it's okay to have a mortgage. Especially our clients who are towards the tail end of their mortgage. I don't see a need to make all those extra payments. You've already paid the interest already. So if you're paying that extra, the extra payments are going towards principal. So I don't think that there's a need to make extra payments unless you really just, have a lot of extra cash laying around and you have nothing better to do with it. You don't want to do anything with it except for pay it off. But for the most part, no, I don't think that it's necessary. For some people that I've talked to, I realize that it's more of a mental thing for them where they just feel more comfortable not having it hang over their head. I understand that, and some people are able to do that comfortably while others are not. And if you're not able to do that comfortably, I'd say, just leave it alone because, again, towards the tail end of it, it's going mostly to principal rather than interest anyway.
That's right. Yeah, they front load the interest for many, many years, that's for sure. So how do you know if I'm financially healthy? How do you check on that?
So do you live within your means? Are you spending wisely? It's looking at inflow versus outflow. Are you managing your debt well? Are you avoiding excess borrowing? Do you have an emergency fund? So I say, 3 to 6 months of cash on hand of what your expenses typically are. Have you set financial goals and are actively working towards them? Are you having a 401k open that you're contributing to on a monthly basis or, per pay period? Are you taking advantage of any match that your company's giving you? Those sort of things.
Mm-hmm. A couple of minutes left. So final question. So once you've analyzed these things and performed a financial evaluation, what are some things that you can do to improve your financial health?
So invest in your financial education, a spending plan, knowing what your spending is, and tell your money where to go. A low debt to income ratio, again, looking at the inflow versus outflow. Established goals, planning for retirement, planning for taxes, an emergency fund like we just talked about, proper insurance coverage. If you're worried about needing help with long-term care down the road, planning for that, life insurance coverage, if you have a young family, things like that. But maybe your financial stress doesn't come from debt or paying bills month to month. Maybe it comes from preparing for retirement and worrying about whether or not you have enough saved. So maybe you worry about having to draw down on those accounts that you've saved so long for. And if that's the case, that's something that we help with every day.
Right. I love that you said spending plan, because a lot of people don't like the B word, the budget word. It's the same thing, but when people kind of recoil when you say budget, right? Am I right?
Right. Yeah. Nobody likes that.
Yeah. I talked to my wife about that. I'm going to give you the phone number after the show.
Okay.
Talk about a budget. That'd certainly be helpful. Let's get to our final segment. All right. So there's a change coming to Social Security website, SSA.gov. Everyone is affected no matter what your age. Here's what you need to know. Gina's got a bunch of bullet points. Let's go through these one by one, Gina. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So Social Security Online users will soon need to create a login.gov accounts if they don't already have one. The Social Security Administration is transitioning all users who made their accounts before September 18th of 2021 to the login.gov platform. So beneficiaries with existing login.gov accounts do not need to take any action. Login.gov is a federal government website used to authenticate online account holders' identities. So starting in September of 2024, so this upcoming September, old accounts will be retired. So it's recommended that you set up a new account with login.gov or ID.me sooner rather than later. Whether you're eligible for benefits still, now or decades away from retirement, creating an account through Social Security with the SSA is highly beneficial. Social Security accounts are free, secure, and will help with many tasks, including estimating benefits, tracking earnings history, and requesting replacement Social Security cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun. I remember when I logged on for the first time, and it goes to show you exactly what your income was all those years. And it's funny when I'm a teenager starting to work. There's very little income, and you watch it go up and rises along the way. But it's definitely a beneficial, because it definitely can track your spending and your earnings, and your earnings, not your spending. Right. But also it tells you exactly. You can check for mistakes too, because sometimes they make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And checking as you go is better than checking all the way at the end when you're ready to start collecting. Giving yourself a little time if a change does need to be made. But yeah, you're right. Looking at the historical data is always going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's like it's rise and then it starts to fall.
Yeah.
After a while, depending on your job and situation.
Exactly.
All right, so I want to get to questions that came in from our listeners, and we have some time here. Hopefully we get to all three, Gina. Dorothy in Durham. I'm looking for a former Roth IRA I had years ago. Life happens, and I forgot to keep track of it. Long story short, is there any way I can find it, or I'm up? I love up the creek without a paddle.
Dorothy, what you can do is, look back at those different jobs that you had in the past, find out where the accounts were held. Sometimes it might just be calling the HR of those companies and tracking down where the accounts are held. If you're not able to do that, think of where they might be held. You can call up the different carriers. There's a lot of different carriers. There's Fidelity, there's Schwab, there's Voya, there's all sorts.
Sure.
But you can call them up, and to find out, they'd need information like your Social Security number. They'd need that sensitive information that you'd have to provide in order to show that you do have an account there or not. It gets tricky though, so it's best to keep all that organized in the first place if you're able to. But if you're already past that and you don't know where the accounts are held, track down the HR representatives of the companies that you once worked at to find out where those retirement plans were being held at the time.
Yeah. Now, if the company's out of business, I guess you're best to just start calling around in different carriers. Am I right, Gina?
Check to see if you have
been
any
involved with.
Yeah. Check to see if you have any statements that are old. If you have a lockbox that you usually keep your information in, check there. Look for anything that's an old statement, and then call the number on that. But I have actually done this with one of my clients before, where we had an old 401k. We weren't really sure where it was held, and we called a bunch of different places and eventually found it, and eventually found out that she had a pretty good amount saved there, and we're working on getting that moved over to us so that everything is consolidated and held under one roof.
Yeah, I've heard some stories of guys like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had $80,000 in this account.
Yeah. It's a nice surprise.
Yeah, it's a nice surprise. I would, I don't know. I think I'd be a little more judicious in making sure I didn't lose track of those things. But
right.
You never know. Life, she said it best, life happens, right? Stuff happens. Yeah.
Well, something we do here is, if you hold everything in one place, it's harder to lose track of what you have saved. So that's what we help our clients with.
You guys keep track of that for your retirees. All right, let's talk to Ray, Rocky Hill. My spouse and I are 64, receive $175,000 a year in pensions. Do we need to worry about inflation killing our retirement plan? There's the I word again, Gina. Inflation comes up every week on the show.
Right. So inflation affects everybody. It is something that we need to worry about. And the way that we want to look at it, again, like we've said a million times, we look at what's our income and what are our expenses. So we have software that we actually use to say, all right, well, these are what our expenses are today. And if we stay on trend, this is what our expenses are going to be 10 years from now. 10 years from now, what's our income going to look like? Are we going to be working still, or are we going to be living off of pension or Social Security, or, drawing down on those retirement savings? So yes, it is something that we want to look at. It's always something that we consider when we're looking at a full retirement plan. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be, out of luck with your retirement. It just means that we have to create a strategy to help navigate what the inflation is going to be doing to you specifically. Mm-hmm. And some people are in a better situation than others, but it's it varies from person to person. It depends on, what's our income, what do we have saved, what are our expenses.
Yeah, 3-4 years ago, we never even. You bake inflation into the plan at like 2 or 3% because that's what it was for a very long time. But not what's happened over the last couple of years. So you have a lot more inflation comments and questions from folks than you've ever had before. Am I right?
Right, and we look at there's the 110-year historical average. That's the total average that we can use for the history of inflation, and it's about 3.27%. Okay. So that is what we use when we're planning. Mm-hmm. It's that 110-year historical average. The most recent 10 years is actually a little bit lower. I believe it's around 2.63%, if I'm remembering correctly, off the top of my head. But yeah, the 10-year historical average is actually lower than the 110-year.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But yeah, we use the higher of the two just to, err on the side of caution.
Right, just bake it into the plan. All right,
right.
Claire and Canton, let's get to one more question. My husband and I bought long-term care policies about 25 years ago when they were relatively cheap. Now our premiums have increased for the third time, over $550 per month. They're going to rise again in 6 years. I've already paid $7,000 in premiums. Now we're in our mid-70s trying to decide if we should accept the increases or cancel the policies. I hear a lot about this, Gina.
So it really depends on what was the reason that you bought the plans for in the first place. Are you worried about needing to go into a nursing home? Are your kids going to be relying on those long-term care plans if you do need to do that? Do you have a history of dementia in your family, or something that's going to not allow you to live in your home anymore? So those are all the things that we want to address before we consider, should we cancel this long-term care policy? Because the last thing we want to do is cancel it and then 5 years later say, oh man, now we really needed it, and now what are we going to do? So it's tough to say that we would cancel it. We really want to consider the reason why we had it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. All right, Claire, Ray, and Dorothy, thank you all for your questions. Well, the show has flown right on by. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Hope you found the information we presented helpful. Look forward to all of you being back next week. We'll have new topics and new questions right here on How to Retire. We don't know if Ben's going to make it back, but if not, Gina will be there. Right, Gina?
Yep, I will be here if he's not.
All right, Gina, you have a great week and weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too.
Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, hereafter known as Foundations, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment, opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Any discussions of specific strategies are for informational purposes only and have been provided to help determine whether they may be appropriate for your specific situation. If applicable, the primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. Each individual investor situation is different, and ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Nothing herein constitutes a recommendation that any security, portfolio of securities, or investment strategy is suitable for any person. No legal or tax advice is provided. Please review your retirement, tax, and legacy planning strategies with a legal or tax professional before transacting or implementing any strategy discussed herein. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. This is not endorsed or affiliated with the Social Security Administration, any federal Medicare program, or any U.S. government agency. If applicable, we do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. All rights reserved.